Brian Germain joins us. Hey, Brian.
Hello, mate. Good to see you, man.
Been a long time since I've seen you. I can't even remember where it was, but it's good to see you. Where are you, Brian? This is home, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm in the home / film studio / parachute factory, slash the home of my Zoom school. I do a lot of teaching sitting right in this chair. Yeah. So I'm just north of Washington, D.C.
Yes.
So I'm sort of on the metro system, close enough, 9 miles from the middle of everything, and yet I got deer eating my tomatoes in the backyard. So
my second interview today on the same time zone. I think that's probably first.
It's easier, right?
It really is. Brian, well, so much to talk about. Your safety stuff. I've just been watching your YouTube, the wiggle room thing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Your parachutes, your skydiving, your advice, your training. I want to find out a little bit more about you as a person. We can see a lot of stuff on YouTube already. But I want to go back. How did this all start for you? How did you get involved in the sky? Was it a family thing, or were you the first, or what?
I was the first in my family to jump. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I was an 18-year-old college kid, with a dream of being an astronaut. It was something from the time I was very, very young. My little brother still makes fun of me that I'd climb into the dryer and spin myself around. Astronaut training, everything was training.
Yeah.
And so this was part of that puzzle. This was sort of beefing up my resume.
Yeah.
I was an Air Force ROTC kid. So I was going to be a pilot on my way to space, and I just fell in love with the actual jumping. And I had 1,000 jumps before I finished undergrad, right? And I sort of weighed it out. I was like, all right, if I actually succeed and I become an astronaut, how often am I going to fly?
Yeah.
How much, what I mean? How much time are I going to spend in space in the part that I really, really want, which is to do EVAs?
Yeah.
Whether it's, on the lunar surface or floating around in orbit, fixing a satellite, it's not a lot. How much EVA time do you and I have now? You know what I mean? Because
exactly.
Our choice to be a skydiver. So I'm happy about my choice.
Yes. Having said that, if you're on the ISS, you're getting constant free fall time. So
yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
There's a lot more than we have. Are you still following the space thing? Are you following SpaceX and Blue Origin and Branson?
Oh, daily. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's a shame that they're going to let the ISS deorbit on its own. It's just it's a lot of money that goes into that. I like the idea of us establishing a permanent lunar colony. I think there's a lot of benefits to that as well.
Yes. Let's see what the next few years come, and if the gateway is still running, and let's see. So, Brian, how did the making parachutes come about? I'm assuming, obviously, you went through your riggers course, and that's where it all started.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I started, when I started rigging, I was pretty young. I don't remember the exact age, and that was to pack reserves and fix jumpsuits, pack parachutes a little bit. And when it really changed for me into designing and manufacturing is as a result of an accident. It was actually not a skydiving accident, it was a paragliding accident, our sister sport. And back in the 80s and the 90s, the paragliders weren't awesome. Right. They were not very stable. They got you up there, you could take off from a mountaintop and land down below, but they would collapse regularly, and I had a collapse. And it spiraled me into the ground, and I was very broken. I've got some of the metal that they removed from me, all the 9 screws and a big old thing inside my femur, putting my hip back together. And I thought, if we can find some way to make these parachutes, and wings more stable, that'd be good, And so I started, sort of brainstorming, and I actually had an idea that I scribbled in a notebook years before, back in like 86, 87, of an airlock. And so that's what inspired me to get into it. Now, of course, my parachute design ideas have expanded beyond just that first thought of let's keep the air inside the wing. And it led me to build a lot of parachutes and learn a lot about different design things, not just that.
Yes. I've jumped one of yours,
Have you?
I did about 1,000 jumps on a Jedi 120.
That's a great parachute, isn't it?
Oh man, it was shump. It just wouldn't stop.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, in my opinion, at that generation of canopies, the things that it was competing against, there wasn't. in its class.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm actually about to reline a Jedi right now. They're still in the air.
People are still there. People, I don't even know what happened to mine actually. I think I don't know. I think it's still in Spain somewhere. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. That was probably 15 years ago now. But
great for ground launching because they, you can pre-inflate it.
Yeah. What was your first parachute you built then? Tell me about your. Would it be? Was it actually a paragliding wing?
Yeah, the very first canopy. Well, I mean, aside from the miniatures, right? So I got my start building, like what you would call a kite now.
Yeah.
Small, maybe 8 square feet up to about 15 square feet. And at the time I was still quite injured. And so I'd crutch my way up the fire escape at University of Vermont in Burlington and drop Nalgene bottles, water bottles with these little parachutes off in the turbulence to see how they do. So that was the beginning of it, the first year. And then I took my best prototype idea down to Zephyr Hills, and I brought it to Tony Uragallo, and they were having a big party. It was the Thanksgiving Day party, and he threw a good one. He actually had a friend who was a really gourmet artist, who's the man, and we're all feasting. And I said, Tony, I got an idea. You want to see it? And I showed it to him, and he went outside, and he's got this miniature parachute, he's spinning around in a circle, made himself dizzy just so he could inflate it, just going around and around and around. And he goes, do you want a job? I said, yeah, I want a job. And so he hired me on, and he has officially called me head of research and development when I started, but it was kind of a joke because I had never built a full-size parachute.
Yeah.
And so that was my job at first, was to training under Marco Iaccola, Sandy Kimball, who's now at Aerodyne. Marco flies planes for a living now. Wonderful people. They were the ones like, Brian, nice try, but unpick. Do it again.
Yeah.
So there was 4 stitches forward and then unpicked 2. But I managed to build the first prototype. I cut it, the whole thing all the way through, and Doug Park jumped it. I wasn't jumping yet. I was still injured. And so Doug Park was the one that threw the pilot chute on this all purple canopy. It was the Blackberry, remember?
Yeah.
So it was we called it the Grape Ape. And I was terrified. I remember watching, because this is one of my best buddies. He was my roommate before that,
Yeah.
And I'm standing out in the pea gravel pit, just worried, pacing up and down. And back in those days, they used to smoke cigarettes, smoking, watching.
Was he wearing? He was wearing 2 other parachutes, right? Another main and a reserve as well.
Well, back in those days, we used to call it, this is my lucky reserve, so I don't need another. Sprinkle a little holy water on your regular reserve. You're testing a main, right? So the way we thought of it is, maybe we don't need it. So we never did. We had one. Yeah. We actually had a Tersh, but back in those days, I never used it.
Wow.
Not to say that that's smart. It's just what we did.
Yeah, exactly. With a lot of things we used to do in skydiving, which you don't do.
That's a conversation and a half, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We can go on and on about those fun stories.
So how was that jump of Doug's?
Doug was in love instantly. I mean, he did a beautiful carving swoop entry, zinged across the landing area. Everybody was like, whoa. And he landed right at the P's where I was, high five. And he was like almost in tears because it was so good. It was so much.
What size was it, Brian?
It was a 120.
Yeah.
I think it still exists. Last I heard, that parachute was in Argentina now.
Jumping.
Yeah. We built them right, man. We reinforced the crap out of them. And, that parachute just kept going.
How did you feel in that pit as he came up to you? How did it feel for you?
Well, it's like a lot of things in this sport where you have this, the beginning phase of worry, bordering on terror. In this case, it's vicarious terror, right? That's worse because if you get yourself hurt, that's one thing.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
You get your friend hurt, that's going to feel bad for the rest of your life. Yeah. And so Doug, came running up, and it was literally kind of a tearful, hugging sort of it's good. And of course that, kicked off the era, and he continued to test for us along with lots of other people. Well, I'm so thankful for people, brave folks are like, I'll try that weird ass prototype.
And obviously there was no GoPro then. You couldn't look at the footage of the opening or.
Yeah. No, we didn't have any of that. Yeah. Wow. No, we just, at this point, we just, somebody followed him.
Yeah.
another canopy and sort of, to match speeds. And this way you get an idea if you're falling out of the sky or something like that. You get a relative ref. So that was, great fun. Great fun.
But what happened next? What did you do after that jump? You've got Doug, he's on the ground, he's safe. What did you do next?
Well, yes, I mean, I'm sure we went to the campfire and got drunk like everybody else, and talked about it for hours and hours and hours,
Yeah.
With all those really exciting ones, I find that the story needs to be retold several times because you don't remember everything that happened.
No.
You know what I mean? Whether it was, kicking ass in a competition or anything else, you're still refreshing the memory of it and kind of squeezing, the emotional lemon, if you will, trying to get every last drop of that joy, out of the experience by reliving it through the story.
I like that.
But then
Squeezing the emotional lemon. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, the conversations in skydiving, the après skydiving conversations around the campfire, going out to dinner together and all that, that's as much a part of it as jumping out of the plane, isn't it?
Well, for me personally, back in the early 90s in the UK, I mean, we weren't going to be jumping every weekend. So you go to the drop zone, you'd have 2 days where you might not even see the plane out of the hangar. You would learn a lot. You'd go to the pub with the old guys like we are now. Wow, I'm just thinking they were probably younger than I am now. You'd be sat with them guys, you'd be eating and drinking and they'd be telling you things and you would learn so much without even getting off the ground. Them days are gone.
Yeah, it is funny to think that we actually are older than most of those mentors that we had back in the days.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 55 this year. It's crazy.
Me too.
Amazing.
When's your birthday?
I'm a May birthday.
Yeah, I'm February 16th. So I've got a few more days left to 54.
Geez, dude, you're hanging on. Yeah, you're going to be older than me soon.
So you were with Tony. How long were you with Tony for?
Years. Yeah. I mean, I worked, for Tony in the shop, sort of running things and, continually coming up with new ideas. And we came out with a new version called the Swept Wing that took us a long time to dial in. And people just fell in love with that one. And at that point, of course, we're doing lots and lots of testing, Tony as well. And so we'd go out at, 6,000 or 7,000 feet. And Tony and I would have some new sit suit that we've been trying out, that the sewers, they'd come and measure us while we were building parachutes and, and then build us another suit. And he and I would test out the sit suits, right? With the ones with the armpit pilot chutes.
Yeah, shoot to see, yeah.
Well, shoot to see, by definition, the way I understand it, the French version was a single wing. And ours was one in the front and one in the back with a retainer line, right, that sort of allowed it to expand outward and create a nice shape. And it flew really well. And we would do all kinds of great stuff. And that was sort of the beginning of what became the X Games competitions and things like that, right? So free flying, didn't exist.
Yeah. I mean, X Games then in, what was it, about early mid-90s? It felt almost like it was going mainstream a little bit. There was skateboarding there and there was skydiving here. Skateboarding did, and obviously we didn't. Yeah.
And it was funny because, on either side of the fence, we had respect. The skateboarder kids and the rollerblader guys who were like, dude, you're the real animals. They're like, no, man, you're the extreme. And like, no, we just jump out of planes. We look extreme, But the truth is, in terms of the physical fitness, the amount of training, the amount of time that they put in practicing, it just it really, really dwarfs what we do, in my opinion. I have huge respect.
Somebody, I can't remember, I was interviewing somebody and they said, well, the thing was, at the time, your parents could go out and buy you a skateboard for $30 and you were away, and that's how that sport exploded with skydiving. You cannot do that.
No, it's sort of a privileged sport. Even those of us that managed to collect a couple pennies enough to buy a cheap rig, and we did a lot of parachute packing and that sort of thing to get to the point where we can jump a lot.
Yeah.
It's still a very privileged sport. So I feel very thankful that I was there at the right time. You were there at the right time where we could start. My first rig I bought, it was, I think I paid £250. It was a chaser, so it was a racer copy. It had a Firelight 7-cell main and a Pioneer 20 reserve, Pioneer XX reserve, round reserve, no AAD. We all had round reserves. Yeah, I had the same rig basically. Yeah. I had an old racer built in 1976 with a Cruise Air, And I got it for $550. Yeah, and AAVs were just those things that you would give to the first free fall guys that pulling the ripcord for the first time. And before and after that, nobody had one in my drop zone, except for that weird person that nobody wanted to jump with.
So how did your the other parachutes, the Jonathan the Jedi? Tell me about those development, how they came along.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Jonathan started way before I got there. I was one of the guys that Tony would say, "Hey, Brian, can you try out this new one? It's a tri-cell or whatever." And I'd fall in love with it, and I'd offer to buy it from him, and he'd say, "No, no, no," and he would disappear, and he'd change it and change it and change it. And so I was just test jumper, And I mean, before that, I was helping test jump for Joey at I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. Yeah, the one in New Jersey. Darn it. Who made the clouds?
Not Sonic. No, he wasn't making parachute. Sonic.
Sonic wasn't a jumper.
No. Was it before?
Oh man, he was playing stickball in New York City. No, Joey D was the guy. But anyway, he would just give me parachutes to jump. It's going to bother me. Eventually, it'll come back up.
You can tell me later. It's
called this company, National. I got to see it. I told you I'd get it. National Parachute. And so they were trying 9 cells and things. It was kind of outside the box. And then eventually, the evolution, the super evolution. I was testing all that stuff. And so Tony, he had just such an artistic side to him, that everything that he did, had deeper meaning, right? Jonathan Livingston Seagull, that's why it was called the Jonathan.
Yeah.
And everything had to really, have a meaning. It wasn't just, a product that you just put out there. Everything had his heart and soul in it. Jumpsuits, wingsuits as well. He's a great guy. I love Tony.
He's an artist as well. He paints and he's building his place right now. That's incredible what he's doing.
Yeah.
And so, with you building parachutes, you already, as a rigger and as a coach, you already got safety in your mind. But it starts to come to the forefront. You start to get really serious about safety and an educator in safety. How did that start for you?
Well, honestly, I mean, I was giving free fly seminars back in those days because, like nobody really did it. And most skydivers just don't want to deal with giving a talk, or they don't feel worthy or something like that. And I was like, well, if somebody doesn't give a safety talk, people are going to have premature deployments. They're going to have collisions. Free flying was so new that people didn't know that you couldn't do it with an ROL, a leg strap throw out pilot chute. They just didn't think of that. And so I started doing free fly seminars. And of course, when the competition stuff started to really grow and we were on TV, our names got out there and we started traveling and teaching. And Quincy, of course, the World Free Fall Convention, giving talks on the big stage, and that was kind of a big deal. And Tony was always kind of shy in front of a big crowd, and so he'd like, Brian, come on, mate, we're gonna, I'm gonna give a talk. And so it'd end up, he'd stand there, say hello, and I'd give the talk.
Right.
He didn't want to do it. And then I remember early on, I wish I had the date. JC Colclaser was going to give one of the first swooping, like sort of canopy control seminars.
Yeah.
And
this would have been like 97, 98, or maybe later.
At the latest. It could be earlier.
Yeah.
I think it was earlier than that, actually.
Wow.
And I mean, he was the man. Well, he was ripping it up on his Icarus Extreme. Yeah. And everybody wanted to know how to do this stuff. It looked so cool. We're all, doing like little 180s on our 120 square foot parachutes. We wanted to really know how to do it. And I started swooping early. So I was fascinated. I had really good mentors, and, Willie Botcher and, people like that were the founders of swooping.
Yeah.
80s. And so JC busted his leg right before Quincy on a base jump. He's on crutches and he's standing there talking to me. We're hanging out. He's like, I can't give this talk. I can't do it. I mean, a canopy control talk and I'm on freaking crutches. No. So he said, Bri, could you do it? And as with a lot of these things, like every book I've ever written, somebody said, Brian, you need to write this book. Brian, you need to design this parachute or whatever. Just, okay. And he gives me a direction. And I gave that first big talk. And that became, this is before Scott Miller was doing, a lot of the canopy control stuff, and he was, is an old friend of mine too. I mean, when we got our AFF ratings, we were the teammates, giving our, giving pulse signals to Don Yarling.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
We got a 4 together, by the way. Which of course now they grade it that way. But so we went way back, and he created his school that became Flight One, and I created my thing, which is just a different model. I'm not gonna compare. There's no point. They're doing a great job. I'm doing a great job, and so is lots of other people. Yeah. There's quite a few of them that are like, damn, you're really good at your job. Thank you for saving lives.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do the best that I can. And I've taught hundreds upon hundreds of canopy courses since then.
Yeah. It's incredible how it's come along. It really is. It's the curve of information that people have access to now, online as well as in person. They can, coaching seminars, like you said, with the Zoom stuff. But tell me about your online coaching. How does that work?
Yeah, well, I have a membership thing that a lot of people join. So for the price of a jump per month, they have access to these live meetings. They usually go about an hour and a half, something like that. Yeah. Do that a couple times a week, one earlier in my day so that the Europeans can join.
Yes.
And I think that's very helpful. And in an evening one. And I think we're going to end up expanding, doing more of those. And basically we log on and I say, hey, everybody, how was your week? Anybody make a jump that you want to share the landing video or, something that, that's sort of salient for you right now, or give me a topic to discuss, ask a question. If I don't know, I'll say, I don't know, but here's some direction to go where we can find that answer, because I don't know everything.
Yeah.
I know what I know, and it's helpful information. But I think it's important for everybody to have that humility and, just balance the humility against recognizing your value.
Yes.
That you could save some lives.
Yes.
You could
and this leads us on a little bit to this latest video, this wiggle room. It's about knowing humility, knowing your skill level, and understanding how ego works. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we're all trying to figure out where ego comes from, but it is a pain in the ass, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The way I look at it is that we want to feel safe. We want to feel safe enough based on our skill set and our knowledge base that we can jump out of the door of that airplane feeling great. That we're not in a state of worry, that we're walking through a minefield where we don't have any control over it. And so I think we build this ego structure, this belief in ourselves in kind of it's a positive concept, I think the ego is an idea, an idea of self in terms of what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
The trouble is that desire to feel good about yourself and feel confident leads in the direction of complacency, of pushing your limits beyond what is possible, not paying attention to things that will get you killed eventually.
Yes.
But the idea of wiggle room is that there's always a little bit of play in the system. In other words, if you're doing something that's dangerous, you may not be killed by it for years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever that is, in that particular conversation, the clip, from our My Mighty Networks group, we were discussing, it was a low experience jumper that felt funny in the plane when all the hop and pops start going towards the tail of the plane too soon, right? Yeah. Instead of staying up under the wings, keeping the CG in balance.
Yeah.
And it was like, but I only have, 80 jumps. Who am I to raise my hand and say, hey, everybody move up. And it's an important thing because the people don't always, myself included, we don't always realize when we're crossing a line. Right. And our initial reaction might be, a little bit of affront, a little bit of getting bruised, because I think of the ego as, sort of a very injurable, vulnerable thing, right? We can get our lower lip out a little bit, and then we're cranky, and then we end up defending an incorrect position.
Well, this is what happened in the cockpit with airliners, wasn't it? The junior was afraid of saying something to the captain if he saw something that which didn't look right, and they had to change that behavior quickly, and it saved a lot of plane crashes. So,
well, and lots of other things too. Military organizations, corporate organizations. You never know where that valuable piece of intel is going to come from. It could be the guy that's pushing the mop down the hallway.
Yeah.
Right? Because they have a different perspective on it. And I think if we value all perspectives, we can get the information that we need.
Yes.
And if we get so insecure about our place of power that we play this old game, of king of the mountain, and we don't listen to those voices that threaten our power and our security.
Yeah. So
I think that's an important idea that I'm just trying to sort of push out there, is that your six, in flying, call your check your six. What you can't see right now because you're focused right ahead is being sort of watched by lots of people.
Yeah.
And you have to be ready to receive that information, because you don't know when, you come out of the bathroom, you got toilet paper hanging in the back of your pants.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know when your pilot chute's halfway out, and you don't know when the spot is actually getting long and you're focused on your four-way, got to get to the exit, and you're inside of your myopic tunnel vision trip.
Yeah. Even just forgetting to take your seatbelt off.
It's embarrassing.
Done that.
It's embarrassing, and sometimes it's crazy dangerous, when it's an emergency exit situation, or classic was one of the women's world records. My wife she's always like last out because she's little, and she's go, and they're all trying to get out of the door of the plane, and one of the chase planes, and somebody forgot to take off her seatbelt, and boom, and she's laying face down on the floor trying to get it off, flopping like a fish, and everybody's climbing over her,
just leaving her
out the door. And Laura stopped and helped her get the seatbelt off and helped her out the door.
Yeah.
It's that kind of brave compassion that we need to continually refresh, actually doing it, but also shining a light on it when people are that way, with their behavior, to give them a gold star in the fridge, and sort of a public thank you when they do something that is outside of their purview, outside of their responsibilities.
So if you were stood outside a Twin Otter, everybody's about to get on, and in this hypothetical situation, you can't hear the engines, they can all hear you can speak to them normally. Before those 22, 23 people climb on board, what would be the one thing you would like to say to them? Guys, please, what would it be?
Take your time so that you can be aware of everything. It's the rushing. It's the quick. I think that's what collapses down the human consciousness into that sort of laser beam singular focus.
Yes.
That excludes the periphery, the surround, the BOC that's behind you, or the other guy's that's open. Expand your view out through slowing down your breath, your emotions, right? Your thought process, so that you can observe everything clearly. And so you can speak clearly where people can understand you. Right? Leadership requires slow, deliberate speech. And people are like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Nobody.
And I think as well, we have to remember when you're full-time, when I was full-time in Ampura Bravo, you're jumping every day. You become very used to the situation. It's easy to be relaxed. It's easy to be in control of yourself, but it's also easy to be complacent. But you might have somebody there, it might be their first jump for a few months, there might be very low jump numbers. And you have to take all this into account. It's easy to get frustrated with people, isn't it? If they are slow getting the seatbelt on, or they're not sitting in the right position. You've got to give these, it's responsible for the full-timers to take the time to look after the low-timers.
And to be a good example, you know what I mean, of how to move in the plane, and how to be specific in your checks and organized in how you do things, so that you can sort of radiate safety in lots of different ways.
If I'm at the back of a Twin Otter, because normally I am, because we're the first group out, I'll always try at the beginning of the day just to make sure I'm facing everybody, and actually do my reserve drills, just to let everybody know it's okay to do your reserve drills.
Exactly, you're not being a wimp by checking.
And I've seen people's eyes go like, oh, maybe I should do my reserve drills.
Absolutely. And I would take that even further, because that's spot on and extremely important. especially for the newer jumpers, but also to make eye contact with other people and keep them from going back inside their shell. Nervous people, man, they just go so much inside their shell. And I understand there's the visualization phase of your ride to altitude where maybe you want to close your eyes. That's okay. But if the people are, are sort of looking around and they don't want to look at, if that new guy catches your eye and you give them that really groovy eagle eye, sort of, I almost want to call it sort of a loving gaze.
Yeah.
But everything's all right.
Everything's going to be okay.
They catch your breathing tempo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They catch your vibe, and it completely changes what happens for them.
Yeah. That's a really interesting thought. And looking at the time, I think that's a good place to leave it, Brian. We've done half an hour.
Good. I could talk to you every day, all day. We should do a show.
We should, man. We absolutely should, but we'll definitely get you back.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see you, Brian. I hope to get. I don't think we've actually jumped together, have we?
Not yet.
Let's make that happen.
I'll do it. I'll go flat for that.
That's all I can do, man. I'm a one-trick pony.
That's Wing always used to say that. Flat's cool if that's all you can do. I'll do whatever you want, man. Let's we'll get together and get in the sky a little bit. Play.
Let's do it. Brian, have a great afternoon. Thanks for joining us on Air Sports News. Take care.
Have a great day.